Simplifiers is the podcast that cuts through the complexity of digital transformation to reveal what works. Created by Solteq, hosted by Amel Gaily, and built for anyone who believes clarity beats complexity every time. In this episode, Amel Gaily explores the real power and real challenges of personalization. She's joined by two brilliant experts from Solteq, Senior Advisor Pia Pekkala and Nordic Marketing Manager Charlotte Wegeberg. Together, they unpack why so many brands struggle to get personalization right.
Welcome to Simplifiers, the podcast that cuts through the noise and complexity of digital transformation to uncover how businesses can thrive by keeping things, well, simple. I'm your host, Amel Gaily, and I'm so glad you're here. In our very first episode today, we're diving into a topic that's often overhyped and underdelivered: personalization. Whether you're a CMO trying to justify investment or a business owner wondering if you even need personalization in your business, this episode's for you. Joining me today are two brilliant experts from Solteq who live and breathe this space. Pia Pekkala is a senior advisor in digital content at Solteq. She spent her career at the crossroads of content, customer experience, and data, helping companies create more meaningful digital interactions. Pia, welcome.
Thank you.
Can you share a bit about your career path and what brought you here?
Yeah, I have quite wide range of different business areas in my background, always somehow in digital customer experience, enhancing whether it's customer support processes or marketing or sales. I have always worked in customer experience in some ways, of course, as we all. And then my educational background is in communications. And at some point, I came to a kind of thought that I really like tech and I really like to use technologies. But I came to wonder that why on earth it's so hard sometimes for businesses to get the real advantages out of the technologies. And that's why I got into a tech company and tech area.
Very interesting. Thank you. Also with us is Charlotte Wegeberg, Nordic Marketing Manager at Solteq. Now, she brings a unique regional lens to how personalization plays out across different markets. So, Charlotte, great to have you also with us.
Well, thank you, Mel.
Tell us a bit about your background and how you found your way.
Well, it was actually more of a coincidence that I ended up in tech, working in a completely different range, the retail industry. And then at some point, someone asked me, hey, don't you want to try out doing something with tech? And I said, well, yes, I'm guessing the internet is the new thing. So that was around that time. And then I joined a small tech company and then kind of figured out that marketing within that business was something that was really interesting. And then I just, I kept my career path, and now I'm here with Solteq, enjoying working with Nordic people cross borders, because, as you said, there are a lot of different things and ways to see how the digital communication is enhancing. So it's very exciting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very interesting career path as well.
Yeah. Well, a bit unusual, but yeah. Learning by doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which is a strength, I think, in many ways.
Yeah.
But okay, let's start with the elephant in the room. So personalization, the theme of today, it's been a buzzword for years, but a lot of companies still aren't getting it right. And actually, let's start off with this. In a nutshell, what is personalization?
Oh, that's a wide question. But in a nutshell, I would put it somehow in a way that it's a customer experience related actions that are coming from users or customers' interest or behavior. It's something relevant for me and especially for my interests. And it can be happening anywhere, whether it's digital or physical or even any of the touch points, but it's personalized or relevant to me.
Exactly. Do you want to add anything to that?
Well, Pia said it really, really well. It's a thing that's becoming more and more obvious that as a company to be able to serve our customers and for them to be able to serve their customers, you have to know a lot of things without knowing too much. So we have to be able to service them in a correct way, also not servicing them too much so that it doesn't become too personal.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting what both of you are saying kind of regarding the relevance and then the personality or the personal aspect. And then again, it needs to feel relevant to me as a customer, but it cannot feel intrusive.
Exactly. And that's interesting what Charlotte mentioned here about the knowing your customers, but not knowing too much, but more of a kind of, it's a thin line in there that what you can use and what you cannot use. Even though if you're a retailer and you know your specific customer's shoe size, you might know that, but the decision is that should you use that for personalization, because it can be a bit much in that situation.
Exactly. I think that's a great example because that's so concrete. And in a way, as a customer, you want to feel wowed, but you don't want to feel spooked out.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to, as a brand, you don't want to end up to be the creepy neighbor.
That's true. That's well said. Well, Pia, from your experience, what are the top 3 challenges executives face at the moment when they try to implement personalization?
I think number 1 is the team silos. The companies might be so siloed around personalization or any things, but especially around personalization that it's hard for them to actually execute it throughout the kind of different experiences and different channels and different basically anything. Then maybe the second one would be around data, because we have, like mentioned, we have so much data already. We know so much about our customers. But the interesting part here is how you know which data you should be using, because not all interesting data is important for personalization. And then, of course, the third one is the kind of I think the most important thing here, that companies are used to doing personalization. Many companies have tried it. We learned from the research that it's basically 10 to 30% that it will enhance your revenue. But why we are not seeing that? It's quite rarely that we see those numbers, and it's because of the kind of ROI not coming, return of investment doesn't come through. And there's multiple reasons for that, but basically not kind of the metrics maybe aren't right, or the point of view of personalization is something.
Very interesting. I definitely want to touch upon return on investment a little bit later on, but team silos, data, and return of investment, I'm sure very relatable for many people listening. Well, Charlotte, as a marketing leader navigating the growing demand for personalized services and content, what's your perspective on this? And do you find the challenges are consistent across Nordics?
Well, yeah. I think actually for me, working with Denmark and Finland primarily, but also Sweden and Norway, the challenges are mostly the same. But I have one really big challenge that also one of those that Pia mentioned, and that's the silo, because even though you try to organize your company so that it's non-siloed, there will always be like a split between, for instance, marketing, sales, delivery, and we need all of the data to come together in one pool to be able to personalize the marketing message to our clients. And actually, I think that's the biggest issue. It is getting the right data into the right system to be able to utilize it.
Yeah.
And that has been a problem, ever since you started, or for me, working with implementing a name in an email. So that's a long time ago. We started writing, "Hey, Amel, nice to meet you." But going from that to all of the data that we have now, that it's a big pool of data.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Very, very understandable. I think so much of what you're both saying just comes down to alignment or lack of it in some cases.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of potential there, definitely.
There is, and it's not a unique problem, you know, in one business. I think across businesses, it's even though, you know, for us working with it every day, we have experienced trouble with it also.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting for me to talk about personalization. Like I said, it's a buzzword currently, but it's not a kind of a service that comes in a box.
Yeah.
That this is the personalization service that we offer at Solteq or anywhere.
Yeah.
Because it's so many things. So you need to really understand the customer and your own processes to execute it the best way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I also think you need to understand that, you know, when you say it's not in a box, it can start at very many different levels.
Exactly.
So it's not like you have to be at some sort of hyped level to start going even further. You need to start, you know, somewhere at the beginning in the small in the small parts. So and then build on it.
Exactly.
So,
I think that's a great point. Well, let's take it further a little bit. So, you know, it's a complex issue, but you know, why do companies often overcomplicate personalization efforts? Let's make it a little bit simpler. So if we have this example, a marketing lead at a mid-sized Finnish retailer was grappling with this very issue. So what's the issue at hand?
Yeah, that's a good question. The issue can be so many things around different areas, and that's why I think at the end it comes to understanding your customers. Kind of, there are 2 point of views. There are the customer point of view, of course, what your customers actually, how they interact with you and how they actually want to interact with you. But then there's the point of view that where you want to serve them better. And around personalization, I would really like to use oftenly kind of the word to serve your customers better. It's not kind of doing something kind of tech things, tech actions in there, but it's kind of finding the situations where you can serve your customers better and where you can actually help them. When you kind of find out at least the one point where you can do better than you are doing right now, you can start from there.
Yeah.
That's basically the thing. But many cases, the mid-sized company, that could be it.
Yeah.
To find the certain point or customer touch point where you want to do better and start enhancing that and learn from that and learn what works and then do it again in other places and then again and then again.
Exactly. So breaking it down.
Yep.
One channel, one point at a time and then testing there.
Yep.
Yeah.
What do you think, Charlotte?
Well, to take an example, as for, you know, what we are doing ourselves, at the moment we're really trying to work a lot with segmentation within the different business areas that we work around. We do, you know, we do both work with retailers, manufacturers. We have utility companies, and so we need to try to segment. So, which line of business are we communicating to, and who are the people at the other end? So are they marketing people? Are they IT people? Are they finance people? So just figuring out how to scale the message to the different segments and the different people behind those segments is a big task.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if you can do that, you've actually come quite far.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And that's actually useful for the bigger companies. If we talk about large kind of companies, where enterprise companies, where you have multiple customer groups, you have multiple user groups, internal stakeholders, the kind of the landscape is much more complex in those companies. That's the same thing that applies there.
Yeah.
But maybe with the larger enterprises, I rather not start directly from enhancing one touch point directly, but there the maybe the importance of understanding the whole landscape of the segments and the user groups and customers would be the starting point.
Exactly.
And start from understanding there and understanding what you actually need from your systems and technology to do that within all the channels, because mostly in the enterprise company, there's multiple channels as well that
true.
takes part in the journey.
Yeah. But I love how in both of your responses, you really kind of talk about the customer a lot. And I love that, because I've so often seen kind of brands lose sight of their core purpose, which is serving customers, and you know, just get caught up in kind of the complexities of technology and all of it. But I think it's, as both of you have so well highlighted, it's all about, you know, who is the person on the other side, because it's still a human business in many ways.
Yeah, it is. And I think the goal for us, for every company, is to define, so who is the customer and what is it that we want to do for this customer?
Yeah.
And when you've defined that, then work backwards and figure out then how can we do that?
Exactly. Yeah. But I want to take us back to data a little bit. We already talked about kind of the overwhelming influx of data, but Charlotte, can you share a little bit more about your thoughts on how to approach the data aspect? You mentioned there's a ton of it, and there's a lot of potential. But you know, what are your thoughts on how could data be utilized more effectively and simpler?
Yeah, well, again, I can you know, take some examples from what we do at Solteq. When we collect data, we try to figure out, you know, each end of the year, we sit down, we talk about, so what is it that we want to do next year? Which lines of businesses is that we, you know, find trendy, interesting, and we collect data from, we do a trend research. So we collect data from people in different lines of businesses with different titles, and we figure out what it is that they need. And when we have that data, we sit down, we talk to the advisory, which Pia is part of, and we talk about, okay, how does this connect to the services that we offer? And when we've kind of figured out, okay, this is where we fit into this future trend picture, then we sit down again, we talk to sales, we talk within the marketing group, and we say, okay, so if we have these trends, we have these offerings, so how should we package these for our customers? So we use the data to try and figure out what to do for next year and next year and next year. So doing the whole plan, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's the customer insights, and those are the ones that we need to rely on. Exactly.
I think that's a great example. Any thoughts for you, Pia?
Yeah, about using the data, that's a very concrete example of how that can be utilized and how to learn from the data from different perspectives. When it comes to personalization and personalizing the experiences, the data also have the downsides of it that we need to address, how to actually use and utilize the data, kind of the transparency aspect of it. So how we actually are using the data. So by that I mean the shoe size example.
Exactly.
That we need to be really aware of the data, and as the GDPR regulation that we are all on, we need to be transparent and we need to actually understand what we are using with that data, what we are using that and what we are doing with it, and to be transparent how we utilize that. Because at the end, I believe that it's the customer's choice, and it should be the customer's choice in there, that if they want us or allow us to use it the way we enhance the experience, and better we are explaining that, and better we are transparent in there, I believe that customers are more and more kind of fine with using the data, because customers are fine with the personalization. They actually expect us to do it.
True.
So we need to be transparent to them that how we utilize it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they want to be on this journey where it is personalized. So when we send out, when we launch some sort of ebook or whatever it is, or if you sell a pair of shoes, you want to have someone next time sending you an email about, hey, these socks would go with these shoes, or this is the next thing you need to do after downloading this ebook. You might want to read this blog or whatever it is. So it's like it's taking data but not taking too much data and utilizing it to make the customer happy and making the customer feel seen and heard.
Exactly. And one thing I want to address is that I don't think companies should be that afraid of using the data because it really comes down to the ways we are using it. If for example, in a B2B atmosphere where customers are locked in users, of course we can use the certain data of them to do the product recommendations for them that's relevant to them. But of course, when we are talking about the visitors not locked in, there are behavioral data we can use still. And it's not kind of wrong in any way if we are transparent with that.
Exactly. Yeah. Really good example. I really love the dialogue. A thought that came to mind regarding this transparency, would it make sense to kind of integrate it as a part of the process? So it's not like you have a process on how to utilize data and how to build personalization, and then you kind of laser it with transparency, but rather have it integrated from the beginning, that every single step is already thought of as a transparent way.
Yeah, I think so, because the personalization, it's more about strategy than technology, kind of any technological gimmick you put in there. It's the way of thinking.
Exactly.
So that's why I think it should be a process, and it should include the data aspect as well as it should include the business insight aspect and our own internal business process aspect. So how we are aligned around everything happening in personalization.
Exactly. Really, really interesting. But let's talk money. Let's talk return on investment. We touched upon a little bit earlier, but I want to dig deep there, because kind of justifying investment remains a significant challenge for many companies. So despite investing in personalization, many companies often kind of struggle to deliver meaningful results, as you said already earlier. So why is that? And kind of what are your thoughts on how to help clearly demonstrate the value?
That's excellent question. And kind of a short answer to that would be something I see really, really often is that companies struggle to have right metrics or follow up on personalization.
Yeah.
And in many cases, that is due to that comes from a thought that personalization is a tech act somewhere. It's a product recommendation feature we put in, or it's sending some certain email or something like that. And then they measure effect of that email or effect of that product recommendation part. Yeah, it can be really effective, but does it really return the investment? I don't think so. So it's not that hard, should I say?
Yeah.
Because it's basically the same as any wise investment in organization, that you need to kind of be in line about the business process or business KPI you want to enhance, whether it's customer lifetime value increase or kind of better revenue from the online sales, or whatever the business value you want to gain out of it, or better customer experience, NPS, whatever. And then you build down from there. So if that's what we want to have out of it, or outcome would be better customer lifetime value.
Yeah.
How we use personalization to get to that. And then you build downwards and you understand what you need to kind of have metrics for. But for the personalization here, what's the kind of the tough part here?
Yeah.
It sounds simple, but the tough part here is that it's not a marketing campaign that you can kind of put on for 3 months and then you come back and see
Exactly.
did it
return on
return the
marketing? No.
investment?
Yeah.
But that's why I say it's a strategy.
Exactly.
So you need to build downwards.
And I think there's also a lot of things about branding wise seen from a marketing perspective, because if you have like a good personalization flow, if you're good with your recommendations, with your customer service, with the way you deliver things to the consumer, it will be like a mouth to mouth saying, next time I'm having lunch with Pia and she says, hey, I'm going to buy a new dress because I'm going to go to a party. And I said, hey, I went to some, I don't know, boost.com, and it was a really nice experience. They had these really good recommendations also for shoes and scarves, and they took me through it very easily. Pia would say, hey, well, maybe I should try that. So it's also about the whole branding perspective. So building a brand that people talk about as something positive.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And continuously just adding value to the customer. Yeah, exactly. I want to come back to the metrics still a little bit. So were I to summarize correctly, if I were to say that, some listener who is thinking about, how am I going to build this business case now for my executives? In a way, should they start with the goal?
Yep, the business goal.
Exactly, the business goal, which is aligned with the strategy.
Yep.
And then find the metrics, which are also aligned with the strategy.
Exactly.
And I think this time perspective that both of you brought up is really interesting as well. Because, of course, depending on who the end customer is, business cycles in enterprise sales can be years. So also kind of remembering that perspective, playing the long game as well.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it's not something that's going to happen from, one day to the other.
No.
And it's something that needs evolving and looking at all the time.
Yeah.
So it's not just something like you can say, hey, now we implemented personalization.
Yeah.
Period.
Exactly.
Check out. Well, check. So, you have to keep working with it all the time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And one kind of important thing when we are talking about personalization is testing and learning from there. So you have a hypothesis. You want to prove that if we do this, then I suppose this will happen.
Exactly.
Then you test.
Yes.
Sometimes you hit the right spots, kind of maybe the right kind of, right away. But then sometimes you end up in a situation that, this didn't work at all, and it actually went totally wrong direction.
Yeah.
But that's why it's so important to have those kind of higher level business metrics that proves the business case.
Exactly.
But also the tactical metrics that prove that are we going into the right direction and build from there.
Very true. Very true. I love that you're using the word hypothesis, because I think that's also really important in a business context, in a business scenario, to also be open that, in some situations, we cannot know that X plus Y equals Z. So we need to have an hypothesis and we need to test it, and then we'll know what it equals. So I think it's important to also kind of not be afraid to sometimes be open about it. That we're not sure if we put, X amount of money here, we're not sure what is coming out of it. But, based on these and these and these assumptions, we're expecting to see this.
Yeah. And not doing anything differently.
Yeah.
You cannot expect any different outcomes.
That's so true.
So that's why you need to test.
That's so true. Well, let's talk about solutions. Let's shift gears towards that. Pia, Solteq has developed something called a personalization maturity model. Could you tell us more about it?
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good ground level starting point for different businesses to understand, where to start or where to go next with the personalization journey. Because we all know that we are in different phases of the personalization. Some companies are doing it quite manually. It's done for certain, for example, key customers, and it's quite manual efforts still.
Yeah.
But some companies are doing it very, very in a high level. There are technical AI and different systems helping you to scale up the personalization efforts. But in every level you want to do better, or you want to do something more or something different. So the maturity level really assess where you are right now, but it also kind of can give you insights of where you want to go maybe.
Yeah.
And then start building from there. So what's the gap between your ideal world and the current situation, and how you can, what's the cornerstones in your road to the ideal world you want to be in. And for different businesses, the ideal world can be a bit different. So not every business needs to be in the Amazon or Zalando level to hyper personalizing everything.
Sure.
Not all companies or all businesses want that or even can exploit that or anything, but every company can do a little better.
Well, that's true. That's true. If hypothetically we had a listener who is, just starting out on their personalization journey and they're feeling a little bit overwhelmed by all the options, what are 3 very practical steps that you would recommend that they focus on first?
At first, I would advise them to kind of learn what is the actual maturity level they are in. Are they doing it manually? Is there some rule-based personalization already in? And then what is the dream world they want to be in? Kind of assess the current situation as is, what's happening right now. And then I would advise them to start from the low-hanging fruits. Where is your business's low-hanging fruit? What you want to do next? What is the hypothesis again here? Where you would get the biggest amount of value out of minimum effort, or the not much effort. Should I put it this way? Not that much of effort, and start building from there. And then not trying to do everything at once. If you're not already doing a lot.
Well, if we think of an ideal kind of state, Charlotte, what does successful simplified personalization look like?
Well, actually, I did the maturity test on behalf of Solteq. And and it has 5 stages. And currently we're on the 3rd stage. So we also have a lot of stuff to work on. But I think for us, again, or marketing related, look at who your customers are, figure out, so what do they need from you to be happy customers? And then think back and say, okay, do the math, what do they need? For us, it meant a lot of digging into the segmentation world. Because for our clients or customers, it's important that we address them differently, because they're in different worlds. Some in retail, some in wholesale. So that was one big step for us that was really important to take, and what we are working a lot with currently. So again, I would say, look at your customers, look at where are you now, and what are the needs that are most important from what can you do right now that are most important for your customers? And then again, keep it simple. Don't try to build a rocket when you can only drive a Volkswagen. So it is like that. And always look at the customers first.
Yeah, that's true. And the kind of the situation is in many cases that the vision is somewhere. Kind of our examples we see all the time are Netflix or Disney or that kind of tech giants that have almost endless resources.
That's true.
To do the personalization. So sometimes I have stumbled into the thought from the business leader that does it really matter to do anything if customers are expecting the Netflix
experience?
Exactly. So does it even matter?
Fair enough.
My answer always is yes, it matters because it's about the customer experience still. You need to kind of beat the elephant into pieces and start building from there, like Charlotte says. You cannot do everything at once.
Exactly. Well, I want to hear kind of real world examples then, because I think as both of you said, not many companies can relate to Netflix, for example, or Amazon because of just, their resources and of course, history and kind of the depth of which they are already in. But I'd love to hear a real world example where simplification in this area led to meaningful results.
I have one example in my mind where a very, very little effort made a big difference. And it was basically about personalizing a landing page for a certain customer group. It was a travel agency that had, of course, multiple different segments of customers, but they started out with a kind of upcoming season, which was I don't remember exactly, but maybe it was skiing season, and there were a couple of things customers usually do in that. They either go to ski the spring season. They either go skiing in the Alps, or then they go to a holiday by the beach. And kind of in that simple way of content, personalized to that intent, that we know the customer, what they have been looking through in the past, what they have been doing there. We can kind of, from that intent, we come up to situation where we know whether this family or this customer is most probably going to the beach or whether going to the skiing holiday on the Alps. And personalizing that, only the landing page for that is made a tremendous difference in there.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's simple.
Exactly. It's a really good example, a very concrete one. I'm sure relatable for many because all companies have a landing page.
Yeah, exactly. And different seasonal kind of expectations from the customer.
Exactly. We've talked, I think you've given both of you really good advice for kind of many different situations. There's one situation I still want to touch upon, and that's if someone realizes they've, just overcomplicated it. They've tried maybe too many things at once. Personalization is becoming, a thing they're dreading. What would be your advice to simplify without sacrificing the value?
The first advice would be breathe.
Yeah. Deeply. Yeah.
Nothing tremendous or nothing dramatic has happened.
Yeah.
Strip down it.
Yeah.
Kind of, you have done quite a lot. You must have some information, some insight out of those.
Yeah.
Kind of find the point there, and then strip down everything. You can always build from the scratch again. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It always comes to the end of the results.
Exactly. What do you think, Charlotte?
Well, again, I have to come back to, look at the customer. What is the real need of the customer? So, and if you build something that was too complex or too much for the customer, then go back to seeing the core needs of the customer and then say, okay, now we break it down to pieces and then we put the pieces back together that we actually need and we leave the other ones out.
Exactly.
I have actually one example of overcomplicating complicating things, and nothing dramatic happened. Just stripped down the things. It was a situation where the personalization went maybe too far, because it can go too far as well. And it was a landing page which was designed content-wise, UI-wise, images, everything was personalized per segments, and there were tons of segments in there. And the kind of the end result was losing the brand identity, because they were trying to do it very, very differently to different segments, and you cannot keep up with the brand identity if you have tons of different, too complex situations. But the kind of the end result for that was also to strip down it and see what actually worked in there, and start building it with a couple of pieces at a time. And then you find the level you should be in.
And I think it's completely okay to say, hey, to talk about that again, it's okay to make mistakes, because by making the mistakes is the only way you learn what's the right thing. So do a lot of A/B testing, see what works for your customers. Maybe you get to show them a post that wasn't exactly the one they hit on, but then you found out that the other one, that was just, the right one. So make mistakes.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. I think it's a good encouragement.
Yeah. And that way we come to the technology.
Yeah.
At the end, of course, when I say that it's not about the tech, the personalization, in a certain point, of course it's about the tech at the end, but it's not kind of it's how you do it and how you use it is the most important thing. And you need to have the technology when you want to scale it up.
Yes.
And kind of to learn from there that what is the kind of things you have already and what you can do already with the technology you have.
Exactly.
And if you don't have any modern technology that which supports personalization quite well these days, then maybe we should look
start there.
Yeah, start modernizing the whole thing. But in many cases, they already offer something where you can start from and then scale it up from the tech-wise as well.
True. Yeah. Well, we're running out of time, so we need to start wrapping up. I want to talk just a little bit about the future. Not too far in the future, because times are strange, so it's hard to predict too far ahead. But I want to ask both of you. So, what emerging trends will you think define personalization in the next 1 to 3 years?
Yeah. Can I? Well, I would be unrealistic if I didn't say AI.
Exactly. That's
I was looking at you, and you were thinking exactly the same.
Yeah.
So that's going to be defining.
Yes.
And it's going to be defining for a lot of people's work. But, it's, I think, opposite as to a lot of people thinking, hey, AI is going to steal our work. I'm one of those who think it's actually going to contribute to our work. So if we can see it as that, I think, we've come a long way. So use it where it is necessary and possible within also the personalization area. But think of it as a tool that can help you, not as something that should define you.
Yeah.
And the AI is the best tool when it assists you to do the not right, but do the predictions or digging through the data or whatever it is that it helps you to do, generate the content. But at the end, it always comes to of course, the human interaction and the kind of oversight of the human, that everything is as they should be, but they can help you along the way there. And the AI is for sure in every area something that we should look into when we are talking about the future trends.
Yeah, definitely.
Very, very so true.
Yeah. And of course, we come to the data here because every AI, whether it's assistant or whatever you want to call it, every AI is as effective as your data is. So maybe the kind of the final comment or advice for the businesses would be that if you're not investing on it yet, maybe the data should be the starting point where all the utilization of whether it's personalization or AI or whatnot should start from.
Yes, fair point. Well, before we go, I want to ask one final question from both of you, because I want to end with a practical takeaway. So if someone's thinking, where do I start? What's the first step to simplifying personalization? And I want to hear short answers from both of you.
Hey, as a marketing person, I would say, join our business labs. We're doing business labs on personalization. So where you get, your maturity level assessed and you can have an idea from Pia and other people in our brilliant advisory as to where to move from that. So, but that would be what I would say. But, start slowly, from the point where you are. Don't go building the rocket that I talked about. So have a look at your strategy and move on from there. Don't do something crazy necessarily.
Yeah. I cannot stress this enough. Is the simple thought that start where you are. If you don't know where you are, then start kind of finding out what's your point in the personalization right now.
Exactly.
And then think through where you want to be. What's the ideal world you want to build for your customers?
Exactly.
And start building from there. And there are businesses that can help you in that journey, for sure.
I think that's a perfect way to wrap up. So simplification isn't about doing less. It's about focusing on the right tasks in the right order to achieve the best outcomes. A big thank you to both of you, Pia and Charlotte. Thank you so much for joining us. To learn more about Solteq's personalization maturity assessment, which we talked about, be sure to visit the link in our show notes. If you're just beginning your personalization journey, the assessment tool is a great way to get your bearings. For those already navigating complex tools and strategies, it might be the perfect moment to take a step back and to see the bigger picture. This has been Simplifiers, and I'm Amel Gaily. Thank you so much for tuning in. Join us for the next episode where we'll dive into the topic of accessibility. See you then.
Thanks for listening. To learn more about Solteq and how they help simplify digital transformation, visit their website, www.solteq.com. Simplifiers is produced in partnership with Solteq by Here Media.